Hey, what's going on everyone? Alex here, and I'm here to talk about my experience playing Adore. Now, if you've never heard of it before, Adore combines elements of roguelikes like Hades with the monster capturing of Pokemon. So when I saw the trailer and found out it was coming out in August, I just had to check it out. I got the game on the Nintendo Switch, so I'll be sharing my experience playing it on that platform. Special thanks to the devs, by the way, for hooking me up with a key. The game is called Adore because it refers to special individuals called Adorers. Adorers are able to tame creatures and have them fight battles in their place. The big difference, of course, is that all battles in Adore are fought in real time. As you might imagine, this complicates things, because it's not like you're using your creatures like you would swords or knuckles like in other action games. You have a creature mapped to a different face button, and pressing these buttons will unleash them upon your foes and activate their abilities. This makes it so that there's a degree of separation from the button press and the resulting action. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, okay, that feels weird though, doesn't it? And I won't lie, the fact that pressing a button in an action game and not hearing an immediate hit response feels a little weird at first. And I should add that other than a dodge roll, your character has no means of offense outside of your creatures. Thankfully, each creature only has one type of ability they'll activate when called out, which not only helps streamline the action, but allows you to create some interesting combinations. One of my favorite early combos has to do with combining the quick set of attacks you get from the very first creature you tame with a deer-like creature that does a powerful pushback attack. In addition, there are simple ways in which you can control how to call upon your creature. If you just want to unleash them right away, you only need to press the corresponding button and they'll just jump out, looking for the nearest opponent and executing their attack. If you want to aim where you want your character to attack, you can hold down the corresponding button, use the left stick to aim, and release the button. Simple as that. The challenge with managing these creatures is that they are all susceptible to damage. So, for instance, after a character unleashes their attack, they'll meander back towards where you are, leaving them open to incoming damage. Pressing the corresponding button again, while they're in this return phase, will turn them into balls of light that allows them to pass through objects, making them impervious to attack. Naturally, you can always head towards your creatures to pick them up faster, though of course you're risking receiving damage yourself. The key here is to utilize your creatures in such a way that they take the aggro away from you while keeping a close enough distance so that you can snatch them up to immediately start their cooldowns, as you just can't simply throw your creatures left and right willy-nilly. The gameplay loop has you starting out at your home base that has a bunch of useful facilities at your disposal. Once you're done here, you can teleport to any of the open locations on the map and take on any quests listed, with one quest specially marked that advances the main story. The other quests serve as ways for you to farm different materials that you'll need to improve your creature's synergies, as well as unlock features such as locked treasure chests and expeditions. Each quest has an associated dungeon that will have you clearing an entire room's worth of enemies before you can progress further. As you progress further into the main story, these dungeons will have rooms that have different types of objectives, which provide some added flavor to your dungeon crawling. The dungeons in Adore aren't huge, and the game actually gives you a convenient teleport that has you quickly zipping around from one end of the dungeon to the other. At first, I was reluctant to use this teleport function, as I thought it would hurt my immersion in the game. But the more I used it, the more I realized that it was the right way to go, as it made each quest run through these dungeons quicker, which lets me test my party compositions quickly, and then head back to town to reevaluate things should I need to. That being said, I do find that much of Adore's dungeons feel a bit claustrophobic, with various obstacles that make some of these areas feel a bit cramped. I get that part of the challenge is being able to navigate these, but I swear, other games like Hades and Diablo have comparatively much larger areas that allow you to focus on the action rather than having to fight with the environment too much. Also, you tend to keep going back to the same dungeon environments very frequently, with a very slow trickle of new environments unlocking as you progress through the story. So if you're the kind of player that loves to be rewarded by unlocking new areas, this might be a deal breaker for you. There's also the subject of its story, which has you fighting an evil being known as Ixer while you try to find a way to extract Draknar, the god of creatures, from your body, who happened to just be there this whole time. The main story doesn't focus on the struggle between Ixer and Draknar, as you get incidental quests that help you unlock newer features. Quite frankly, while I do feel as though the story is drawing a lot of its inspiration from the culture of its developers, I do think that it could have been presented in a better fashion. There's also something to be said about the dialogue and how it's written, as it prefers to dole out information in a pretty straightforward way. Better written dialogue would have not only helped lift the storytelling, but also engaged players in a different way than other aspects of the game. This also extends to the writing of some of the game's objectives, with some that are a little bit too ambiguous, that it might frustrate some players. I also find that there are various UI functionalities that could have been improved greatly. When trying to pick ingredients to use for cooking, for example, you can't simply remove ingredients you've already added. You'll have to exit out of the entire interface and go back in to redo the ingredient selection over again. Another example happens to be when trying to add more slots for your creatures. The cost for additional slots is displayed, sure enough, but it doesn't display how many of said currency you actually have. I also don't know if these currencies are used elsewhere, so there's a bit of reluctance there that made me not want to spend it initially. Despite these, however, I can't deny that I've kept coming back to play more of Adore, and a lot of that has everything to do with the systems that all work together to make finding the optimal party composition fun. I won't go over everything here, as I think the discovery of these systems is part of the fun, but I will go over two of the early ones that you'll get to play around with. The most straightforward of the two that I'll be talking about is the artifact system. Occasionally, during your dungeon runs, you'll come across an unknown artifact that needs to be appraised back in town. Once appraised, you'll be able to buy these with coin and equip them on your character. These artifacts add buffs that trigger when specific conditions are met, complementing both your playstyle and the creatures you have in your party. The other thing I want to talk about is the synergy system. Synergies refers to enhancements that unlock whenever a specific type of creature is a part of the party. So for example, if you use a nature essence to unlock your Mikra's precise attack ability, this enhancement will be available anytime a creature with a nature type is in your party. There's also expeditions, trade points, and a whole bunch more things that I haven't even mentioned that give Adore a sense of depth that is quite easy to understand, and one that encourages a lot of experimentation. And last but certainly not least is the music. There's a lot of Spanish guitar in Adore, which I absolutely adore. It grounds the entire game in this South American vibe that is very different from other games of its type, and really does a lot of work to set the mood for your adventures. Overall, the bite-sized dungeon grinding allows anyone playing Adore to quickly test their builds and ensures that you're always getting something during your runs. And its myriad of interconnecting systems will keep you coming back for more, making you think about potential setups you can create, as well as the many ways your creatures can synergize with one another. Adore is a perfect game for anyone who just wants to get a quick and easy way to engage in some action combat, with the game providing something fresh and unique, unlike any other action RPG you've experienced before. Adore is out now on all modern platforms.